Wednesday Night Baseball, Mets and Nationals. The banged up Mets, I should say. Everybody on that team's got elbow problems, it seems like. Rick Sutcliffe is part of tonight's broadcast team, along with our old buddy Doug Glanville. John Scambi will call the play-by-play, but Rick Sutcliffe joins us now on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Rick, welcome back, pal. How are you?
Hey, bud. It's great to be with you guys. You have any more of those Tim McGraw tickets?
Oh, we got a bunch
For
of
a guy like you, Suck, we can take care of you, buddy.
This woman just won pit passes, front access with her own television, and it was a prize and a half that she just won. But anytime you want to play down on the golf course here, you're in. But hey, listen, we the last time we talked, we talked about pitching in baseball, and you look at this Mets team, and man, you got a lot of guys out there with hurt arms, and Harvey's got all sorts of problems. When you're looking at that pitching staff, what do you look at with this team who last year got to the World Series because of that staff, and now it seems like they're not even the same guys anymore?
They have struggled a little bit. There's no question about that. Watching Harvey, pitch in this series against the Nationals, I mean, he looks like he's starting to get close, guys. I think that, being a young pitcher who had a good first year and then struggled the next couple before putting it together, I think, the league's going to adjust to you. And I think what Matt's going through right now is just trying to readjust and make the adjustment he needs to make. And what that is being more consistent with his secondary pitches. The velocity was still real good. I think that last night, he gave them a chance to win. It just didn't work out because of the rain delay and all of that. When you talk about Syndergaard and you talk about Matz and these elbow problems, guys, we're talking about guys that are throwing 100 miles an hour. I mean, you drive your car that fast, there's going to be things that give out. But, there's no question. There's so much ability there. They've done a lot of great things, but it's got to be a concern for them as they go forward.
Rick Sutcliffe's with us, and, talking about pitching, here in Philly, Aaron Nola is a guy that we're all wondering what's going on with him. And, you talk about command. He's a guy who lived off of command. He threw strikes. He didn't walk guys. He hit 4 guys the other night. I don't know if you get to see him throw every single time out, but this was a guy that lived on his command. Do you have any opinion on what could be going wrong with a kid like Aaron Nola?
I tell you what, we saw a lot of him early, guys, and, this is one of those guys that he pitches down in the zone. He's got that late life, great composure. You love the pace and presence that he created out there. This shocks me. I have not seen him the last 4 or 5 starts. I know that they've not been the norm or what they expected out of him. I could make a real quick phone call to Pete McCann. I know that we could get some information there, but I don't know. It's stunning to me. I hate throwing the word injury out there, but you just wonder. I mean, you're talking about hitting people, and a guy that had terrific control, you just wonder if there's not something physically wrong there.
Yeah, and, it's funny. You talk about Pete and the job that he's done with his team. It looked like they were falling off a little bit, but they've won 2 last night. They fought back, and it seems like a team that Andy MacPhail said, he's actually thinks that they're a little further along than he ever dreamed they would be when he got this job right about this time last year when he came into the organization. Is that a team that you agree that has far exceeded expectations of people around baseball?
I totally agree with that, guys. And I tell you what, I think the number one reason is Pete McCann. I'll be real honest with you. I was with him in Chicago with the Cubs. I was with Terry Francona in Chicago with the Cubs. And these to me this is the same person. These are the same type of personalities. These are guys that are tremendously fun to be around. They know the game. But, as much fun as they are to be around, they're not afraid to tell you the truth. And if that means getting in your face, or if that means, doing certain things that you might not agree with as a young player, once you look back on it, it's something that is something that needed to be done for you. That was a terrific hire on the part of the Phillies, bringing Pete in there. I like their young position players a lot. I know that the pitchers and things that they got from Cole Hamels and Giles, there's still a lot to be determined there, but they're definitely heading in the right direction, and they've got the right guy leading.
Rick Sutcliffe's with us here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN FM. You can watch him tonight on Wednesday Night Baseball. It's the Mets and the Nationals on ESPN2. And Sut, Mike Gill and I have this debate back and forth. Is it McCannon or Mackinnon?
Well, for a long time it didn't matter. I mean, he was a poor minor league player and he was bouncing around the minors. It might end up being like one of those Roy Oswalt things. Remember Roy? It was Oswalt until he won 20 games. Pete gets them into the playoffs, and then I'll be honest with you, a lot of times on our Wednesday night game, I announce it both ways, as you guys know. A lot of times get going, get excited. You never know where it's going to end up. But I think it's mechanic, but I wouldn't, don't quote me on that.
It's funny, Rick, because somebody texted in and said, why do I always pronounce his name wrong? And I said, I don't say it wrong. I say it both ways, and I think both ways might be right. I'm not really sure if there's a right way or wrong way, but you gave the same answer that I've given.
Good stuff, Sut. Now, Sut, you mentioned the Cubs earlier. What a year they've had so far. And, of course, local people around here, and I'll throw this in, Matt Caesar's a kid that grew up in the South Jersey area, went to Villanova, and then is now having a nice role player off the bench for Joe Madden. What about the Chicago Cubs? Is this finally their year, Rick Sutcliffe?
Well, that's so hard to say. Guys, it's a lot different than it was, say, 50 years ago when you won the National League. You had a series against somebody, and if you won that, you were the World Series champion. There's a wild card. There's a division series, the LCS. There's a lot that goes into that, but just like the situation last year, they had a chance to win it. They ran into a buzzsaw with the Mets and that pitching staff in the league championship. The one thing I will say is, people talk about the '84 team. We lost the league championship series, that kind of thing. Well, what's the difference between this one and that one? Well, back in 1985, we basically just brought the same people back and tried to win it again with the same crew we had the year before. That's not what Theo Epstein has done. Theo Epstein went out and he got on-base guys in Hayward and Zobrist. He went out and got experience in Lackey on the mound. They did a lot of things that make them better this year than they were last year. And, of course, we know how many – they won 101 games when it was all said and done.
Hey, Rick, this is Billy Schweim. The Nationals and the Cubs look like to be the best two teams in the National League. Do the Nats have enough to beat the Cubs and compete with them this year?
I'd like to see the Nats possibly tighten up that bullpen a little bit more. I'm okay with Kelly pitching the 8th inning. I'm okay with Papelbon in the 9th. I think that, like a lot of people a few years ago, Baltimore added Andrew Miller down the stretch. They thought they had a chance to win it. I think that there's, they could probably use one more piece there. What they saw with, Giolito, you got to be excited about that. They just lost 7 in a row. I saw them in San Diego. I went out to the ballpark on Friday night, of course, to say hello to Dusty and all of that. I like how there was really no panic in that clubhouse. There's a lot of veteran leadership. Dusty's energy is terrific. And, Dusty's a guy that, he got the Giants, he got the Cubs, he got the Reds to the playoffs. I see him doing exactly the same thing, here with the Nats.
Rick, the Nationals have, raised some eyebrows with Papelbon's, antics in the clubhouse and in the dugout. Is there anything we should worry about? Not that we worry about it here in Philadelphia, but I mean, is there any animosities on that team?
I don't think so, Billy. I really don't. I think that, the key, there was a lot of frustration on the disaster that, happened with the Nationals last year. There were a lot of good players that had bad years. I felt like the whole infield was out of position. I felt like there were a lot of mistakes that were being made there. Those things have been turned around. And you know what? Sometimes, like how, absence makes the heart grow fonder or whatever. I think losing those games in San Diego and on this past road trip, I think it makes everybody realize how tough that closer's role is, how difficult it is, and what a great job Papelbon continues to do. I think they'll welcome him back with open arms.
Yeah, he's been hurt for a little while, and maybe that's why they've turned some things around, because he hasn't been around that group of guys here. Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Rick Sutcliffe's got Wednesday Night Baseball. It's a good one, the Mets and the Nationals. And Rick, I'll close with this, because we're getting around 4th of July. When should the fans, when does the races start heating up? When should we start really getting fixated on who the real contenders are?
Guys, I go back to what Bobby Cox always said down there in Atlanta. You don't know what you have until you get to that 60-game mark. So I think the race to the finish line has already started. A lot of times, a couple of teams that are going to go in. to the playoffs. They're going to make it. Now, are they good enough to win it all? You kind of evaluate yourself there. But, you know, Theo Epstein years ago when Boston won it all in 04, he said the key was for that team to get to average or better at every position. And he didn't feel like they were in 03, even though, you know, they had a chance to beat the Yankees. The Aaron Boone home run was what sent them home. But in 04, he felt like they had improved a couple of areas where they weren't average or better. I think that's what the Nats have to look at right now. Are you average or better at every position? I think there's a couple of areas where they could get a little bit better in. Now the question is, are they going to go out and do it? Is Mike Rizzo able to fill that gap that they have to give them that opportunity to go all the way?
He's Rick Sutcliffe, Doug Glanville, John Sciambi tonight. They'll have the call Wednesday Night Baseball, Mets and Nationals. And, of course, we will be keeping an eye on that National League East race. Can the Phillies become a wild card contender? Will they start fading away? We'll find out. The second half of the season is about to start when the All-Star game comes up in about 2 weeks. We're almost at All-Star break already. Rick, always a pleasure. We'll be watching tonight. Enjoy the game.
Guys, it's a pleasure to be with you. Thanks for having me.